Welcome back to the Real Human Project. This is our public podcast. It's where we shine a light on some of the real human stories recorded by our members. Our project is open to everyone, so please go to realhuman.io to record your episode. Today we meet Ahad Bandealy. Ahad shares his story about confronting his mental health issues. He found a path forward when he moved to Kenya and committed himself to the service of others at an orphanage and a hospital. He shares how he has found healthy ways to deal with stress and how taking a big risk starting a company has set him on a really exciting course. Ahad is on a pretty amazing journey of healing, growth, and success in his life. I found it inspiring to listen to, and I hope you do too. Now, I'll hand it over to our AI-powered host, Sam, and their interview with Ahad Bandealy.
Ahad, let's start with your childhood. Can you tell me about the home and neighborhood you grew up in?
Oddly enough, the home and neighborhood I grew up in is only 3 minutes from where I am today. It was interesting. My parents struggled when they got here, but when I was young, I didn't see much of that. Like they had done quite well at that point. I mean, yeah, my pops couldn't be around much because he was working so hard, but where we grew up was a result of that, right? And it was a nice area, a lot of friends in the neighborhood. They'd always gather at our house because we had the nicest basketball hoop, and we'd play in our driveway all the time. We'd literally stay out, until it was dinner time, and parents would call you in. So all those cliches you hear about, right? The home we had, my parents still have it to this day, and there's just so many memories there, and definitely felt like a safe space. I had 2 older brothers that grew up with me there as well, and the house has a lot of meaning, I think, to each person. For me and my brothers, because it's where we grew up, where we got along, where we have stories, where we had birthdays, where we got, where brothers got their first cars and whatever else, right? Had their first girlfriends. But for my parents, I think it was their first like major purchase that kind of was like, hey, having migrated here to the United States and being able to provide, a house like this for the family was a big achievement for them.
It sounds like you had a wonderful childhood in a home filled with love and cherished memories. Switching gears, how would your school friends remember you?
They would remember me as definitely like a class clown. Like I was always joking around. Sometimes I was a bit loquacious, right? I think they would also remember me as an athlete because, I played a lot of competitive sport, both basketball, football, and then also did some track. And I was definitely regarded as an athlete amongst my peers and amongst my friends. I think my school friends would also remember a bit of the affluence my family had and the hospitality we would show others when they would come to our house. Like my school friends, some of them didn't come from the best neighborhoods. Some of them came from a lot of challenging experiences, and they would end up finding themselves at our home more than their own in certain instances. And my mom and dad, being of Eastern culture and descent, they had their hesitations, right? For those who maybe not look and feel like them, but once they got to know folks, they treated them people like they were their own kids. Feed them, give them whatever they need, let them stay as long as they need, talk to them, make them feel valued, right? So, yeah, I think my friends found respite in coming over to our home.
It sounds like you left a lasting impression on your school friends as a funny, athletic, and welcoming individual. Now, tell me about the best teacher you ever had.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. To be completely honest with you, I had a lot of shitty teachers. There was one teacher in high school and then one again in college that really left a lasting impression on me. And the 2 characteristics that they both shared, interestingly enough, were ones that I thought I wouldn't get along with. They were stern in certain instances. They were kind of like sarcastic. If you said certain things, they'd make you feel, not make you feel silly about it, but like they would cut to the point on stuff, right? And so, what I liked about both those teachers is that I had the ability to do well at school. I just didn't apply myself. And those 2 saw through the bullshit, right? They would very clearly tell me, "Ahad, you're smarter than this. You got to apply yourself, and I'm not going to take these types of excuses." So they pushed me to be the best version of myself, and those experiences culminated in the highest grades in those classes. Right? I ended up going from bottom of the barrel to their top student because of how they pushed me.
It's fascinating how the stern characteristics in your best teachers had a profound impact on pushing you to be your best self. Moving on, what's the bravest thing you've ever done?
I'm torn. It's between 2 events. One in 2007. confronting the fact that I had a lot of mental health issues, knowing that I wasn't in a good space, not knowing, if I lived to see the next day, needing to kind of remove myself from the environment I was in and spending 3 months in a third world country, giving back to those around me. That really helped to reset my priorities, my passion, and my goals and interests. And then the second thing that happened years later, 2017, leaving a corporate job and a decently paying job on the precipice of having my first child to create a startup that had no sense of security and had no compensation or income attached to it.
Both of those sound like incredibly brave decisions. Now, have you ever done something you wish you could erase?
Yeah, yeah, I have. One, I wish I could have made better decisions at the forefront of the startup, right? In beginning years. I think I could have set myself up for a lot less stress that I had, later on. And I could have probably avoided a few confrontational situations that occurred as a result. And when I was younger, I wish I could erase some of the vivid moments that still live in my mind of interactions I had with people that I love, the way I behaved with them. Sometimes people that I love the most and that I held in deep regard, I didn't treat the best and I didn't make them feel valued. And I'm sure there are many instances in which they thought, why are we wasting our time with this? Right. And then in another instance, one of the people that I previously dated, because it ended really bad, but I think I needed that experience in order to lead me to my wife, the woman I'm with today.
It's understandable that you have some regrets, but it seems like you've learned and grown from those experiences. Let's move on. What do you value most in a friendship?
I value honesty, candor, right? Intellectual discourse. I'm not saying that me and that person need to be the smartest people on earth, but like that we drive each other, that we're able to kind of have a conversation that like leads to something more than just trivial nonsense that we engage in day to day. I want to be challenged. I want to have new thought processes. I want to grow. So someone that can help me grow as opposed to just keep things stagnant. I guess also a key thing is like someone I can have fun with, right? Like, so someone who gets my humor and I get theirs, and that we're genuinely in good company when we're around one another.
Openness, intellectual stimulation, and a sense of humor sound like important aspects of a friendship. Switching gears on your very best day at work, the day you come home and think you have the best job in the world, what did you do that day?
I got into the space of mental health to help others because I know what it's like to be on the other end, right? And so hearing people's experience with your platform, right? That they received the help that they needed and that they're grateful to you for that opportunity. And that had you not, had the foresight to create a platform like that, some of these people would never have gotten help, right? So having those days when you hear, man, this platform that you and your team put out had such an impact, not just on a person, but a community that suffers from some of the worst experiences of trauma and that have some of the highest incidences of like mental illness or anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, etc. To hear that the thing that you've built has provided value, service, and support to these individuals, it makes it all worth it. All the stress that you take on to get to that point, it's as though you do it all over again.
Wow, knowing you've made a real impact in the world through your platform must be incredibly rewarding. Now, I have to ask, how do you cope with stress?
Previously, in the very recent past, probably not until the beginning of this year, I would cope with stress through alcohol use, alcohol and drug use, marijuana or things of that nature, right? Since the beginning of this year, the way I cope with stress is trying to get an endorphin release. So whether that be doing something meaningful that takes me away from the thing that causes stress. So like maybe switching gears and spending time with family to going for a walk, right? To I do like cryotherapy, which is entering a chamber that is negative 220 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 minutes. And that, you have some music playing and just kind of resetting your body because of all the health benefits of cryotherapy, right? So, things like that. More recently, I've tried like sensory deprivation tanks, which are awesome and a great stress relief. Breathing. taking time to do a breathing exercise, right? Whether it be promenade breathing or engaging in box breathing. That's a good way to relieve stress for me. And then maybe once every couple months, if I feel really stressed and I need to take a break from stuff, I'll do some water therapy. Water sport therapy is what I call it. There's a place right next to me for $50. I can hop on a jet ski for 30 minutes. I'll take that out in the water, throw some music in my ear, and just drown out the world and just try to take the thing as fast as I can on the water and just try to take in my surroundings. So just there's an array of different things I'll try, depending on how high my stress levels are. Those are some things I might engage in.
It's great to hear that you've found healthier ways to cope with stress, from endorphin releasing activities to therapies like cryotherapy and float tanks. Now let's switch gears. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given, and who gave you that advice?
I can't remember exactly who I got the advice from, but the advice that I received finds genesis in empathy. And whenever we get frustrated, we tend to ask, why the hell is that person acting that way? The thought process that shifted from this piece of advice was asking the question, what happened to the person that created that reaction from them? So what's happening in their history? We all have histories. We all have reasons why we behave the way we do. And so really trying to put myself in other people's shoes is something I've struggled with. I've succeeded with it in certain instances and I've struggled with it in others. And so really trying to fully empathize with people irrespective of their background or circumstance. So that piece of advice really stuck with me.
Now, let's talk about your professional success. Who do you owe it to?
I would have to say number one is my wife. She's been through it thick and thin. She has known me at my worst. She's known me at my best, and she's decided to support me throughout each of those processes. Had it not been for her, I probably wouldn't have even took the risk on the startup. It was her that pushed me to give up the high paying job to work for myself instead of working for someone else. She encouraged me through the transaction and the merger. She, again, helped me through some of the darkest moments that I've had in my life, irrespective of the business I built. She's also been there to celebrate all the wins, big or small, and kind of keep me centered and help me realign my purpose in all this. So I would say, above all else, it's been my wife who I attribute my success to.
Moving on, tell me about a moment that was a real turning point in your life, regardless of whether you realized it at the time.
In 2007, going to Kenya and volunteering at the local orphanage, working at the hospital, and spending 3 months away from the first world life that I knew and took for granted and living in much harsher conditions was a huge turning point in my life. It helped me truly realize like what matters, what I care about. It changed my relationships with my parents and those around me that I love. And it really illuminated like all things I have to be grateful for. And like I cannot stress how much of an impact it had on the person I became. Yeah, probably that.
Volunteering in Kenya and experiencing a different way of life sounds like it had a profound impact on you. Now, what's one critical piece of feedback you've received that was really difficult to hear? Why was it difficult for you to hear, and what did you learn about yourself?
Some critical feedback that I've received that was difficult to hear is that like I think it has to do with how frustrated I get about certain situations and kind of like my reactions to those around me, taking things personally, right? I guess it was difficult to hear because I know I need to learn to let things kind of shrug off my shoulders, that I can't always control for an outcome, that it can't always be the way I desire it or want it to be, right? That as much as I stress or emphasize working collaboratively, I have to also showcase those characteristics, right? So, it's difficult to hear that feedback and to know that, hey, yeah, I can't always do all the things on my own. Sometimes working with the team isn't about providing the answer, but just listening, right? When you feel criticized, it's never easy to hear. And I think part of the reason why it's never easy to hear because you care so damn much about what you're doing, but also because some of the things that I hear, I know myself that I need to improve upon, but it's like I just can't do it. Not that I can't do it. It's just that change takes time, right? And that because if you're so stuck in your ways based on environmental circumstances and experiences that have wired your brain a specific way, it becomes so much harder to change.
Receiving feedback about the need to let go of control and work collaboratively can be tough, especially when you care deeply about what you're doing. Now let's switch gears. What's something you do for fun?
There's many things that I do. Play competitive sport in the mornings, which is always fun because it gets me going and it sets the tone for the day. Another thing we do for fun is spending time with the kids and getting them out. It's really fun to kind of see my kids have a good time and see the smiles on their faces, and to kind of see us as a family bond together. I love going to dinner and having, when the time is appropriate, having a drink with my wife. I always find that super fun, and definitely trying new restaurants. It's always a fun experience for me.
Thank you so much for being on the show today, Ahad. And to the listeners, I'd like to tell you about one of the really cool ways people are using the Real Human Project. It's companies. We've created podcasts just like this for Google, the Cleveland Clinic, Weight Watchers, Paramount Plus, and a whole bunch more. The difference is that these podcasts are all private. Only employees can listen, and each episode features a different employee sharing their stories, experiences, and reflections. The companies we work with have found their private podcasts an amazing way to bring their people together and to promote a sense of inclusion and belonging in this new hybrid world of work. If you're looking to introduce a little human connection into your organization, please visit realhuman.io.